Has any weirdo ever tried to take an action figure out of your shopping cart? I've never actually had that happen to me, but I have had other collectors eyeball some stuff that's in my cart. And let me just forewarn you, if you ever try taking anything out of my cart, I may Batista bomb you, or I may chokeslam you, or perhaps I'll just ask you to put it back in. We always imagine ourselves Batista bombing people that like try taking stuff from you, but then in reality, you probably just like angrily tell them to not to. But anyways, all jokes aside, guys, leave people's carts alone, okay? I did see some posts about this on social media and I thought it was pretty interesting. But anyways, let's get straight into today's video. And I should clarify, I'm not going to call out people by their names or content creators because I think that's pretty low. Unless it's like me directly responding to a content creator, I usually just use like in general thoughts and feelings about a particular situation. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So essentially about a week or so ago, Hasbro decided to showcase some of their new Marvel Legends, and they decided to announce the new Maximum Spider-Man Marvel Legends action figure. And I believe the Maximum moniker is going to be used for anything that's like brand new sculpt or a brand new design from the Marvel Legends line. And potentially it's going to be like a deluxe type of release where they include a bunch of different accessories for that particular figure. There has been quite a bit of speculation over the past, week or so. There are people that feel that it could be a new Hulk. There are people out there that it could feel like it could be a new Iron Man or even a Captain America. And just the speculation list goes on. And it's very interesting. I love this type of content that's like speculative, where we can just kind of talk and rant about potential future releases from Hasbro. However, within all of that range of content, there is quite a bit of hate landing on the Maximum Spider-Man. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of people are comparing it to like imported figures, foreign action figures. And then others are saying that this figure should cost anywhere from the price range of like $45 to about $50. And the critics out there are complaining and saying that it should be closer to that like $30 to $35 price range, compared to like, or they're using the examples of like the G.I. Joe classified line to excuse this type of reasoning and thought process. And look, I'm not really going to get too deep into it because we incessantly talk about the difference between them owning a particular franchise and them not owning a license, where they have to actually pay fees to actually use like characters and names and things of that nature. So they can't just mass produce stuff because they feel like it. Like there is quite a substantial amount of money that they not only have to pay upfront, but I believe it's like for every single figure sold, they have to pay a percentage to the particular, whatever entity owns that particular franchise. And so licensing can be pretty expensive, which is usually one of the main reasons that you see like the G.I. Joe line and the Transformers line get way more love from Hasbro. It's just because they own those particular franchises, those names, and then it's easier for them to throw in a bunch of money and still make quite a bit of profit for themselves. And people just don't seem to understand. It feels like we have to explain that every single time we have this type of discussion. And I get it. Look, there's corporate greed everywhere. It's not just with action figures. We see it all day, every day when it comes down to consumer products. But for us to sit here and, judge Hasbro more harshly than we do other OMs, I think is an absolute sham. And for those people that may assume that I'm a Hasbro fanboy, you clearly probably don't watch much of my content. Like if there's something that I feel needs to be called out from Hasbro or from McFarlane or from NECA, it's irrelevant to me who the manufacturer is. I'm not a fanboy. I have no alliances to anybody. I just like when somebody's giving you good, solid product, when they're actually putting forth effort, when they're showing love to the content or the original source material. That's when I truly enjoy the collectible. And obviously there are quite a few things that entail me being able to enjoy a collectible. But let's get straight into it now. A lot of the criticism that is going against this particular Maximum Marvel Legends Spider-Man has to do with wordplay. People just love using words against Hasbro, and they love generalizing what exactly this figure is offering. Now, first of all, let's get rid of this mindset that imported figures are things to jizz over. Like I've bought many, and I've said this before on the channel. When I first started collecting, I made the huge mistake of jumping into the import action figure universe, and I have to say I was pleasantly, surprised at how bad some of these figures were QC wise and articulation wise as well. Like, I picked up so many different MCU SH Figuarts action figures only to be greatly disappointed. Like, sometimes the Marvel Legends counterpart had better articulation. I mean, you can sit here and you can talk about plastic and different methods and different pieces and engineering that went into these figures. I could care less. I just looked at the product. I looked at what they could do in terms of articulation and how durable the Marvel Legends line was. And I know people hate when I bring up how durable the Legends line is, or a lot of these domestic action figures that are sold here, but that just to me makes absolutely no sense. The argument is always because they have more accessories or because they're more expensive, and they have face plates and they have all this fancy engineering. At the end of the day, I'm only going to look at the accessories. I'm going to look at the articulation. It's honestly irrelevant what kind of plastic they use, what kind of paint they use. I just want a figure that is going to look good, that is going to display well. And like I said, the kind of plastic is just, it's not something that's interesting to me, how the figure feels in my hands. If I can pose it, if I can throw it up on my display and it looks really good displayed, that's what I'm going to go with. And personally, I think just from, and again, nobody has this action figure in hand, so everything that we're doing is, purely observational. We're only speculating. None of us can actually say things for certain. But yes, the articulation scheme for this particular figure is right up there with some of the imported figures. In terms of accessories, it's right up there. If you want to make the argument that the plastic is slightly different or that there's more engineer work in those imported figures, I guess you can make that argument. But is it really that big of a difference? I don't think so. And again, just my personal opinion, my personal take. I think everybody's going to have to make their own personal choice and their own personal decision, because it's their own wallet. It's their own financial situation. They have to figure things out and put things in order. What I will say really got under my skin was the wordplay that they used here, because a lot of people claimed that everything that was on this figure had already been done. And yes, technically on the surface, if you look at the butterfly joints, they've done that before. We've had so many different Spider-Man Marvel Legends that have butterfly joints. We've had toe articulation. We've had that double section at the mid torso that is articulated. We have seen the pinless technology. All of that is 100% true. But what people seem to completely get lost in is the fact that this is a new figure. Like, yes, toe articulation is not anything new, but these toes, the articulation on the feet for this particular figure is brand new. The butterfly joints, yes, we've seen that before, but not these butterfly joints. I don't know if people are misinterpreting exactly what Hasbro said, but essentially this is a brand new figure. Yes, we've seen the features, but it's not this particular version. If it would be completely different if we were just getting a new neck joint attached to the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man body mold, but that's not at all what we're doing. We don't know exactly what the range of motion is going to be for these figures. We know how butterfly joints work in general, but we don't know how these work specifically. Maybe the arms can stretch backwards or forwards a little bit more. They also mentioned that there was some engineer work done to the hips for this particular figure on top of the new neck articulation. We also know that double ab articulation has already been utilized by Hasbro in the past, but again, we don't know to what degree this figure can articulate in those particular points. And I haven't even touched on the accessories. This figure is going to come with a plethora of those, brand new hands, extra head sculpts. There's even a web shield. You heard that correctly. It's an actual shield made out of web, and then there's also the little stand that holds the web accessory piece in place. And for those of you seasoned collectors that have been picking up everything that Jada Toys is throwing out, you will be very familiar with that theme or that style. They have been using their own little stands for effect pieces. I think that's like one of the mainline OMs that I first saw do this. I mean, maybe there might be some imported figures that did it before them, but I think they're the ones that started to kind of make it a standard for all of their figures released thus far. And yes, there will be those people that come out and say, well, why am I supposed to pay extra for brand new accessories? But again, you're missing the point. It's not about you receiving brand new accessories. It's about the fact that they made these accessories specifically for this reveal. You may get these way down the line, like they may continue to reuse some of those head sculpts or some of those hand accessories, but this is where it all started. You're getting all of this together in one package. Now, look, I'll be brutally honest with you guys. Should this figure be as much as some of the imported figures that you see online? I guess it depends on who the import figure is coming from, because, you know, I guess it depends also how you ship it to yourself and, you know, what main retailer you use. But for the most part, you're looking at bare minimum about like $50 to $60. But by the time most people get around to them, they're closer to like $70. Now, there are some like Figuarts figures that you can pick up at like your local Targets and Walmarts, but they're usually like a more basic version. It's usually just like a Goku with like maybe 6 extra hands, and that's about it. And you usually pay about $35 for that type of collectible. Sometimes they'll come in with like swappable face sculpts, but for the most part, for a $35 price point nowadays, you're just getting the extra hands and maybe a couple of different accessories. But you have to keep in mind, these are 1/12, like true 1/12 collectible action figures, whereas in the Marvel Legends line, I guess, is somewhere between the 1/12th and the 1/10th scale, although I will say closer, or much closer, to the 1/12 scale. If let's say a Goku or a Spider-Man figure was released by SH, it would probably be just under 6 inches, whereas in like a Marvel Legends action figure is usually like 6.5 inches. It's definitely beefier, chunkier. It has a lot more girth than like an SH figure. But look, we're splitting hairs here, okay? At the end of the day, I do feel like you get way more value with this particular figure than those $35 releases from SH. In most cases, let's compare it to like a regular SH Figuarts figure, or even let's say like a Mafex release. I don't think that they should be as expensive as those figures, right? Those usually run anywhere from like $70 to $90 or $60 to $90, depending on which version you're getting or what particular character you're getting and how intricate the mold overall is. Even though I've said it before, I think imported figures are massively overrated. They're overpriced. They're not as durable. Stuff is always chipping off of these figures, and the articulation is always very limited. There are times or instances where I've actually bought a Marvel Legends action figure and compared it to like an SH way back in the day, and sometimes they had the same level of articulation. Like, it was nothing too crazy, and so I've always thought they're a little bit overrated and expensive. But let's just say that that's the price point because they use different material and they have extra accessories, or more accessories than like a regular $25 Marvel Legend. But let's compare this particular Spider-Man. Let's assume that it's all brand new sculpt. Let's assume that everything that we saw is, specific to this particular character. Let's not just say it has butterfly joints. No, they're butterfly joints specifically for this character. It's all brand new engineering. Same thing with the toe articulation and the hips and the neck joint and everything. Let's just assume that everything head to toe is brand new. And you're also getting the 19 extra accessories. Let's say it's 18. Some people don't want to count the stand. It is what it is. Let's take all of that into account. And I should reiterate, just from the promotional images and from what we saw in the live stream, I think that this particular Spider-Man is actually even more articulated than some of the imported figures that I've had experiences with. And that's without breaking up the mold too much. Like, we do see like Revoltech, for example, or a lot of these other OMs that are like imported figures that have really gappy joints, or the joints just look extremely unnatural. This particular figure just looks really well designed, really well sculpted, has a phenomenal amount of articulation. So the question is, should it be worth as much? What's the price point that this particular figure should be? Now, I'm going to compare it to like the Gamerverse that released a few years back and was going for $35, and it was using new articulation and a new body mold, but it wasn't a unique body mold, and that one was going for $35. This one has way more accessories. It's a brand new body mold, and just in my personal opinion, I just assume it's going to be within like that $40 to $50 price point. $50 is obviously pushing it. I think that it would be an absolute travesty if they try to push it at that $50 price point. But anywhere between the lines of like 40 to 45, again, pushing it to 50, That just seems natural to me. There's licensing fees, there's all these things that you have to account for. And let's not forget, if you're actually trying to go out there and actively look for like an SH Figuarts Spider-Man, comic book accurate Spider-Man, or a Mofix, most of these, even the ones that are on sale, are going to run you anywhere from like $70 to about $90. Okay, that's assuming you didn't get it day one, or you didn't use one of these websites that has, you know, cheaper shipping or things of that nature. Let's just say you go through like Big Bad Toy Store, Entertainment Earth, or one of these reputable dealers. You're going to be paying somewhere along the lines of like $70 to $90 for some of these releases. Do I think that those figures are worth twice as much as this Hasbro offering? Like if this Marvel Legend is going to be offered at $45, do I think that I should be paying, let's just put the example that, you know, Mofix decides to release this exact version, but, you know, with their own stylings and their own accessories for $90, do I think that that figure is worth twice as much? I don't think so. I don't know where people are getting this information and how they're trying to do math in their heads. Let's just assume it was $70. Do I think it's worth $20 more or $25 more than this figure? I don't think so. I think the entire market of the imported figure, or the entire mentality of collectors, I think is misguided. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, you know, a lot of content creators, they tend to kind of jizz over imported figures and they put them up on pedestals. In my personal humble opinion, I do believe that in most cases, the imported figures are better than Marvel Legends action figures. They offer way more. They have better quality, but I don't think that they're like levels ahead of them. We have seen some of the newer Marvel Legends Spider-Man that articulate just as good as some of the imported figures. Granted, they don't have as many accessories, and the plastic is different, the material is different, and so therefore they are more expensive, and that makes way more sense. But I don't think that there's like levels, or I should say that I don't think that the imported figures are levels ahead of Marvel Legends. I think they're still comparable to each other, at least in terms of value, right? Like I get this much for 25 and I pay that much for, you know, 70 or whatever the case may be. Look, at the end of the day, I can't tell anybody how to spend their money. I can't tell anybody how to think or how to do math in their tiny reptilian brains. Like at the end of the day, you're going to have to make your own choice. In my personal humble opinion, what I think this should be worth, I think it should be worth anywhere, you know, along the lines of like $40 to $45. That to me is a good solid price point, just because I feel like there's a lot of new stuff in here. Hasbro's actually, you know, pouring effort into this particular reveal, into this particular figure. And I think that they, you know, deserve the profits for it. And just one last point that I want to get across. Let's not forget, this is a brand new subline. This isn't Marvel Legends. This is supposed to be like a maximum line that is going to offer us like characters with a bunch of accessories and potentially brand new body molds and sculpt, and, you know, brand new engineering introduced into this particular line. So I'm hopeful that this is somewhat successful, that just enough people buy this so that Hasbro continues to do this in the foreseeable future. We just don't know what plans they have. Maybe like in the next 2 to 3 figures, maybe they start releasing absolute bangers. Maybe they give us a Wolverine with a ton of different accessories, maybe a Captain America with a number of different unmasked head sculpts, and, you know, shields and effect pieces and things that we've never even seen before. Maybe things that we haven't even thought of before. I'm really excited. And I know this isn't like a, you know, picture perfect situation. I know most people want to pay like $35 for this figure. I think being realistic, 40 to 45 is probably a much more reasonable price point, even though I hear people, or I hear rumblings about this being $50 potentially. All in all, I just feel like this figure and this overall release from Hasbro is getting a ton of hate, and I think it's a little bit unwarranted, because nobody holds the imported OMs accountable for the massively overpriced products that they ship out. And I know a lot of people like to attribute it to the fact that they have to like ship these figures from overseas and things of that nature, but I still feel like they're, you know, overpriced. And like I said, those manufacturers are never held as accountable as Hasbro for some unironic reason. And even though they're considered like lower end collectibles at the $25 price point. But again, this is just my personal humble opinion. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know how wrong I am. Let me know how you would love to choke slam me on a concrete slab just because I disagree with you, because that's just how the internet works. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, if you guys enjoy this type of rambling content, we do this pretty consistently. And if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to stay tuned. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.